The Adventure of G.I. Joe. Cobra Raven comes with what you see here. Other figures sold separately.
You may recall in part 1 of the Night Raven restoration that we had a little bit of an accident where the front landing gear broke. Well, not the front landing gear specifically, but the actual holding pins that held the front landing gear into the lower fuselage. And I didn't know how I was going to solve that, and we were about to go into Dragon Con, so it was going to take a few weeks before I figured it out. But we don't give up at RetroBlasting, and so I've devised a solution. Now before I get into the specifics of the solution, I want to be clear about something. This Night Raven is mine. It is not someone's from childhood. It is not one we've taken in to try and help restore. This is one that Dan Geister found at a garage sale and sent to me. And it was in really bad shape, and I'm trying to just refurbish it for my own purposes. That being said, G.I. Joe vehicles are notoriously brittle, they're fragile, they weren't constructed with sort of future-proofing in mind, so I'm not as concerned about authenticity in this restoration as much as I am restoring function and increasing durability. That's what I did with my childhood hovercraft, the G.I. Joe Killer Whale, with the rear fins. And that's what I'm going to do with this, because this Night Raven is going to appear in future videos possibly, and I just need it to work and have all of its parts and not be fatally broken. So I'm doing what I call MacGyver fixes on this.
All right, hotshot, now what?
If you would prefer a more purist restoration, then there are other methods such as sculpting things with epoxy and putty and trying to recreate the actual nubs of the little clips and then epoxying them onto the fuselage and painting them. I ain't got time for that. That was something that I would do if it was someone else's. And as you've seen, we've gone to great lengths for other people's toys, but for my own purposes, I'm not doing that. So I found a solution. It's unconventional. Let me show you how I did it. The problem with the Night Raven is that the landing gears are inserted at the factory through the exterior of the fuselage, not from the interior. And so they have to go past these clips when they snap in. And as you can see, there are 4 clips, 2 on the front and 2 on the back, or forward and rear. What that means is that when this landing gear is held in place and then you use the mechanism to push the landing gear outward, these clips have to keep pressure on the lower end so that it doesn't come flying out the bottom of the plane. If the clips get brittle, as was the case here, then they can't resist that pressure, and so the clips break off. In my case, I was trying to reinsert a forward landing gear when the clips broke off. What I want to do is find a repair that increases the durability and restores full function. So I'm not interested in perfect aesthetics. I just want it working again for my needs. So what I did was, because these 2 clips had broken off the back, I needed to find a backstop, something that would hold the top landing gear in, but also be durable enough to resist the forward pressure from the landing gear mechanism, the lever inside that pushes these landing gears down. And I felt like a metal substitute would be better, but I didn't know what I was going to be able to use. Well, in looking at different pieces of wire and metal and things like that, I discovered that the perfect piece is a Night Raven piece. This piece right here, which I'll show you in some stills, is a piece of metal that is the mechanism or the part for the landing flaps. It's for the braking flaps on the rear of the Night Raven. And you'll notice it has this little divot in the middle, this machined bent curve, so that it can fit into the hinges at the back of the fuselage inside the toy. And when I was playing with it, I kind of tucked one of them up in here, and I realized this would become the perfect backstop to fix this problem. And since I had one Night Raven that's incomplete and lost its lower fuselage anyway, I thought, well, this will be the perfect donor part. So I measured it, I cut it with a Dremel, and then using JB Weld, which is a product that I would only recommend in extreme situations like this, and only if you're keeping it for yourself, I JB welded the curvature of this piece up inside with the landing gear already in place. So we're going to pull the tape off. It's been about 15 hours to cure. It's a powerful adhesive. It's used in automotive situations most of the time. So that means you get a really, really strong hold. It's a 2-part adhesive. So what we're going to do is remove this, and I'll show you how this looks. I've taped everything in place to keep pressure on the piece of metal, and also to keep the landing gear from falling out and ruining the fix while it was curing. So some of you might think that aesthetically you're not partial to this repair, and that's okay. Everybody has their preference, but as I said, for me, this is going to suit me just fine. As you can see, it kind of looks like a pair of bicycle handlebars now, but it's exerting pressure over the landing gear pin so that the landing gear no longer falls out the bottom. And it is epoxied on the inside up against the fuselage with JB Weld. It's a very strong hold. It's not going to come out. So my hope is now it's repaired in such a way that it can withstand the action of the mechanism when it's functioning. And it looks like it'll be able to do that. So let's get ready to reassemble this. There was one other fix I had to do, and I want to talk about that. At the back of the fuselage, there is supposed to be an extension on both halves. I'll show this to you with this as well. On the top part of the fuselage, on the back side right here, there's supposed to be a piece that comes off because it's supposed to, when they clamshell together, it creates a mounting point for the rubber end piece that creates the end of the plane. Unfortunately, as with many Night Ravens, it gets brittle and it had broken off at some point. I didn't even have the rubber piece for one. I did have the rubber piece for the other Night Raven. Pull this out here. So here's the rubber tail cone, and I had to figure out a way to reattach this, and I didn't want to glue it back on because that's just a cop-out fix. I don't like using super glue on pieces when I can use something else. Super glue parts tend to eventually fall off again, and then you've got to re-glue them and re-repair them, and it just gets messy. So what I did was I used a piece of metal flashing. It's something you can get at hardware stores in kind of a little roll. I've used it for a ton of things. It's a great around the house kind of thing. And using a piece of metal snips, I fashioned an extension piece, and I want to show you what that piece looks like. This is the final part that I ended up making after cutting out a rectangle of metal flashing. And then I took a drill bit and I lined it up so that the drill bit was approximately the size of this screw hole on the back so that it would wrap around it, because I want that screw to be able to go through. And I drilled a hole out with it. Always remember to use safety equipment and do it in an area where you're not going to damage furniture. Just use common sense when you're using a power drill. And then after I did that and I got it fitted to the rear of the airplane, then I started trimming down the extension that comes out of the back of the airplane. And I have stills to show you for this. Slowly shaping it to make sure that it could accommodate the tail cone. And then when I got it to the proper distance, the proper length, in order to preserve the tail cone from getting cut by the sharp edges of the metal flashing, I then wrapped it in painter's tape. And upon doing that, you can see that the tail cone fits nicely. And this will be a permanent fix, so that when all this is put back together as it was test fitted, the tail cone will fit on there just like it did on the original piece, not being glued, and it will look proper, and there will be no chance of it accidentally breaking off because it will be wrapped around the screw post. So it's a great fix. These things take time to work out. They're MacGyver-like fixes, but they really pay dividends as far as durability of the repair. And now comes the part I've been dreading, putting the airplane back together. So we start with the brake fins, the brake flaps. We want to put them on with the flat part of the fin facing upward. We don't want it shaped this way. You can tell there are serial numbers on the bottoms of these flaps. So you're going to want it to go this way. Set that in there like that. That looks pretty solid. All right, next we have the actual lever mechanism itself. You want to make sure that your lever mechanism is fairly straight. If it's warped, then you're going to need to heat it up and straighten it out. A lot of these get warped. I can show you right here. This is one from a donor, and it's very warped. I didn't want to use that one. It's just better to use one that's already on a level plane. All right, so I've lowered the bomb bay in order to get the center ridge out of the way while I work on trying to get this clipped into the rails. One would think that these notches would line up with these tabs or these clips, but there's not enough clearance to do that when you have the landing gears in first, and the fact that this is so long that it runs into this when you line these up with these clips. So I guess I'm just going to have to massage it a little bit like I did before in getting it out in an attempt to get it back under the clips. I really, really am starting to dislike this airplane. Alright, it's on one side. And it's on the other side. Alright, so now I can lock the bomb bay in place. Testing my repair. Pretty solid. It's not moving. Alright, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to clamshell this together. Now we have to make sure that our rear engines are in place, and I'm going to pick the best two rear engines that I have. That looks a little gnarly. That looks pretty good. This one's melty. This one looks pretty good. All right. So we're going to set these on the rear of the fuselage in these notches. All right. All of our landing gears are in the slots. Fairly certain. First thing we got to do, don't forget, put your windshield back in. We polished our windshield with Novus, and I'm just going to set that back in here. Let it clip its way in. Once you get the windshield back in, once you get the windshield back in, it's a good idea to clean the fingerprints out of the inside before you reassemble, because it's going to be hard to get back in there once everything's put together. All right. All right, it should line up fairly nicely and simply because everything's on rails. Oh. One thing I didn't do, which I'll do here in a second. As you can see, the fins. The fins need to be slotted through. And then we have to make sure, there we go. You see how nicely the fins sat in place once everything was clamped together? So we're in good shape. All right, now, yeah, the tail cone, because of my repair, I'm going to figure out exactly the best way to, what position it should be in. That's okay. Let me flip it over and just see if it fits better that way. That's a lot better, actually. What are you talking about? That part goes on the drone. Alright, we've got this in place. It's time to get out the screws. Especially with G.I. Joe vehicles, make sure that you do not over tighten. Once you feel resistance, stop. And then you can adjust as needed. And especially with G.I. Joe vehicles, I would recommend you do cross patterns, diagonals, when you put it back together to create even pressure on the fuselage, because these things are just so brittle. I'm saving the tail cone screw for last so that if I have to make any adjustments to my repair, I can. Alright, so we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 screws holding it together. We just need the 6th. Let's make sure we like where this is. It's good. The rear of the fuselage is flush, which is important. That means that the landing gear mechanism will hopefully work properly. Here's our tail cone. I'm going to put this notch toward the bottom because I can't remember which direction it goes in. Not that it matters. Look at that. Perfect repair. Landing gears look good. And they function perfectly. After more than a quarter century, I finally own a Night Raven, but it hasn't come without problems. Thankfully, all of the solutions we've been looking at have worked so far. Part 3 will be the final build. We're going to put all the pieces back on it. We're going to find all the lost pieces. We're going to get the pilot. We're going to get the cockpit put together. We're going to figure out all those little Night Raven unique challenges, and we're going to surmount them just like we did these big problems. So thanks for watching this, and we will see you on part 3.